The doorbell camera footage showed my wife sneaking back into our house at 2:47 a.m., her hair disheveled and her lipstick completely gone. She'd told me she was at a late client showing until midnight. The timestamp didn't lie, but apparently everything else in my life did. My name is Harlan Pierce, and I'm 47 years old. I run a commercial drone operation business in Kansas City, Missouri. I take aerial shots of construction sites, inspect cell towers, and document insurance claims. It's honest work that pays well enough to afford the 4-bedroom colonial in Overland Park that my wife Liora insisted we needed to maintain our image. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Liora Pierce is 44 and sells luxury real estate. She's got platinum blonde hair that costs more than my monthly truck payment and a wardrobe that could fund a small country's defense budget. We've been married for 15 years, and for the last 2, I've felt like a stranger in my own home. "Harlan, you're being paranoid," she'd say whenever I questioned her increasingly frequent late nights. "These high-end clients expect availability. You wouldn't understand the luxury market." She was right about one thing. I didn't understand spending 3 hours showing a house that could be toured in 30 minutes. I also didn't understand why she needed to buy new lingerie for client confidence, or why her phone was suddenly password protected after 14 years of marriage. But I understood plenty about surveillance equipment. My son Stan is 13 and sharp as a tack. He's got my dark hair and his mother's green eyes, but thankfully inherited my ability to observe details that others miss. He'd started giving me looks lately, the kind of looks that said he knew something was wrong but didn't know how to bring it up. "Dad," he said one Thursday evening while Liora was upstairs getting ready for another emergency showing, "why does Mom's car smell like different cologne when she gets home?" I'd noticed it too. Some expensive stuff that definitely wasn't mine. My Old Spice apparently wasn't sophisticated enough for luxury real estate. "Maybe it's a client's cologne lingering in the car," I told him, but we both knew that was weak. Stan nodded slowly. "Yeah, maybe." The breaking point came on our wedding anniversary. I'd made reservations at the Majestic, the same restaurant where I'd proposed 15 years earlier. I wore my best suit and bought flowers, white roses, her favorites, or at least they used to be. Liora showed up 20 minutes late, checking her phone throughout dinner. When I reached across the table to take her hand, she pulled away like I'd burned her. "Liora, what's going on with us?" I asked. "We used to talk. We used to laugh together. Now I feel like I'm living with a stranger." She set down her wine glass and looked at me with those green eyes that once made my heart race. Now they were cold as winter pond ice. "You want honesty, Harlan? Fine. I'm only staying with you for financial stability. The house, the lifestyle, Stan's school, it's all expensive. But love? I found someone better for that." The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I sat there for a moment, processing what she'd just said. 15 years of marriage reduced to a financial arrangement. 15 years of believing we were building something together, only to discover I was apparently just the bank. "Who is he?" I asked quietly. "Does it matter? You wouldn't know him anyway. He's in my world, not yours." I stood up from the table, pulled out my wallet, and left enough cash to cover the bill and tip. "You're right about one thing, Liora. I don't understand your world, but I understand mine just fine." I walked out of that restaurant and drove home in silence. Stan was at his friend's house for the night, so I sat in my home office, staring at the wall of monitors I used for my drone operations. Each screen showed a different angle, a different perspective on the same reality. For the first time in months, I had perfect clarity about my situation. My wife was cheating on me, had been for God knows how long, and thought I was too stupid or too weak to do anything about it. She was wrong on both counts. I pulled up the doorbell camera app on my phone and started scrolling backward through weeks of footage. There it was, a pattern I'd been too trusting to see before. Late-night departures, early morning returns, and always on nights when she claimed to have client emergencies. Then I found something interesting. 3 weeks ago, she'd left at 11 p.m. and returned at 3 a.m. But her car wasn't alone when it pulled into our driveway. A black BMW had followed her home and parked across the street for 10 minutes before driving away. The license plate was clearly visible in the high-definition footage. I ran the plate through a database I had access to for my insurance work. The BMW belonged to Barrett Cole, age 50, address listed as a downtown penthouse. A quick Google search revealed he was a real estate developer who specialized in luxury properties, so that was Liora's better man. Barrett Bear Cole, former college football player turned businessman. His company website showed him in expensive suits, flashing a smile that probably cost more than my annual dental budget. I spent the next 2 hours going through every piece of footage from the past 6 months. The pattern was clear once I knew what to look for. Liora would leave for her client meetings, and Barrett's BMW would be spotted in various locations around the city at the same times. When Liora came home that night, I was waiting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee and a folder full of printed screenshots. "We need to talk," I said. She glanced at the folder and her face went pale. "Harlan, I can explain." "No need. It's all very clear. Barrett Cole, right? Nice BMW. I'm sure he can afford better restaurants than the Majestic." She sat down across from me, and for a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married. Vulnerable, caught, almost sorry. "How long?" I asked. 8 months, she whispered. 8 months. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks to pay for her lifestyle, she'd been playing house with Barrett Cole. "Are you going to leave me for him?" "I don't know. It's complicated. Barrett's divorce isn't final yet and—" "Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop talking." I closed the folder and stood up. "Here's what's going to happen, Liora. You're going to discover that I'm a lot more complicated than you thought, and Barrett's going to discover that sometimes the nice guy isn't actually that nice." I walked upstairs, leaving her sitting at the kitchen table with her mouth open. In my bedroom, which would soon be just my bedroom, I opened my laptop and started making a list. Barrett Cole had no idea what he'd gotten himself into, and neither did my cheating wife. But they were both about to find out. I woke up at 5 a.m. the next morning with the clarity that comes from having a mission. Liora was still asleep beside me, probably exhausted from her double life. I slipped out of bed and went to my office to start making calls. My best friend Simon Archer answered on the second ring, despite the early hour. Simon's an ex-cop turned security consultant, and he's used to emergency calls. "Harlan, what's wrong?" "My marriage just became a business transaction, and I need to restructure the deal." "Jesus, Liora?" 8 months with some developer named Barrett Cole. She told me last night that she's only staying for the money. Simon was quiet for a moment. "What do you need?" "Legal advice, financial strategy, and maybe some help with research. Can you meet me for breakfast?" "Denny's on Metcalf in an hour." I spent the next hour transferring money between accounts, changing passwords, and downloading financial records. By the time I met Simon, I had a clear picture of exactly how much Liora's betrayal was going to cost her. "She's got access to about 30,000 in checking and savings," I told Simon over coffee and eggs. "But the business accounts, investments, and retirement funds are all in my name. The house is jointly owned, but I can prove I paid for 80% of it." Simon nodded grimly. "First thing, freeze everything you can legally freeze. Second thing, document everything. Third thing, find out exactly what you're dealing with regarding Barrett Cole." "Already started on that." I showed him the folder of screenshots. His company is Cole Development, high-end commercial and residential projects, divorced last year from wife number 2, has a reputation as a player. Any business connections with Liora? That's what I need to find out. We spent 2 hours planning my strategy. By the time I got home, Liora had left for work. I found a note on the kitchen counter. We should talk when I get home tonight. L. Too late for talking, I thought. Time for action. I called my bank and froze our joint accounts, citing suspected fraudulent activity. Technically true, I suspected Liora had been using our money to fund her affair. Then I called our financial advisor and moved my retirement funds into an individual account. Next, I set up a meeting with divorce attorney Rebecca Martinez for the following Monday. Simon had recommended her as someone who didn't mess around, but the most important call was to my son's school. I asked them to call me, not Liora, if Stan needed to be picked up for any reason. When they asked why, I simply said there were some family issues being resolved, and I wanted to be the primary contact for now. Stan came home from school at 3:30, and I was waiting with pizza and a serious expression. "Dad, you look weird. Is everything okay?" "Sit down, buddy. We need to have a man-to-man conversation." I told him an age-appropriate version of what was happening. His parents were having serious problems, his mom had been dishonest about some things, and there were going to be some changes in our family. Stan listened without interrupting, his green eyes getting more serious by the minute. "Is Mom getting divorced from us?" he asked finally. "She's getting divorced from me. But you're stuck with both of us forever, no matter what happens. That will never change." "Good," he said quietly. I was worried. "There's something else, Stan. I might need your help with some things. Nothing dangerous or wrong, but I need to know what's really been going on around here. You notice everything. I know you've seen things that didn't make sense." Stan nodded slowly. "Like Mom's new clothes that she hides in her trunk, and the way she practices conversations in the mirror before she goes out, and how she's been deleting text messages really fast when people walk into the room." My son was more observant than I'd realized. "Yeah, like that. If you see anything else unusual, you can tell me about it. Okay?" "Okay, Dad. Are you going to get revenge on her?" The question caught me off guard. "What makes you ask that?" "Because you get that look sometimes when you're planning something big for work. Like when you had to figure out how to get those aerial shots of the stadium during the football game. You get really quiet and start organizing things." Smart kid. "I'm going to make sure we're treated fairly, Stan. Sometimes that might look like revenge, but really it's just making sure the truth comes out." Liora came home at 7 p.m., earlier than usual. She found Stan and me in the living room watching a movie. "Harlan, can we talk privately?" "Sure. Stan, why don't you go finish your homework?" Once Stan was upstairs, Liora sat down across from me. She looked nervous, which was unusual for her. "I tried to use my credit card today, and it was declined. Then I went to get cash, and the ATM said insufficient funds. What's going on?" I froze our joint accounts pending a review of our financial situation. "You can't do that. I need access to our money." "Our money? Yesterday you told me you were only staying married to me for financial stability. Today, you discovered what financial instability feels like. Funny how that works." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "Harlan, be reasonable. I have expenses. My car payment, my credit cards, your boyfriend's dinner bills?" Her mouth snapped shut. "Here's the thing, Liora. For 8 months, you've been using our money to fund your affair with Barrett Cole. You've been lying to me, to our son, and to yourself, but the lying stops now." I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot from our credit card statement. "Dinner for 2 at the Capitol Grill on March 15th. You told me you were showing a house to clients that night, but I was home with Stan, and you charged $160 for dinner. Unless your clients were very hungry, I'm thinking that was a date." Liora's face went white. "You've been spying on me. I've been paying attention. There's a difference." She stood up and started pacing. "Okay, fine. Yes, I've been seeing Barrett. But Harlan, you have to understand. Our marriage has been over for years. We don't connect anymore. We don't have anything in common. Barrett understands my world, my ambitions, your need for expensive restaurants and new lingerie. That's not fair. You know what's not fair, Liora? 15 years of marriage reduced to a financial arrangement. You know what else isn't fair? Finding out your wife thinks so little of you that she doesn't even bother to hide her affair very well. I stood up and faced her. But here's what's really not fair. You thinking I'm too stupid or too weak to do anything about it. What's that supposed to mean? It means Barrett Cole is about to discover that his girlfriend comes with some unexpected complications, and you're about to discover that the man you've been taking for granted knows how to fight back. Liora tried to look defiant, but I could see the fear in her eyes. You can't threaten us, Harlan. Barrett has lawyers, connections, money, and I have the truth, detailed documentation, and absolutely nothing left to lose. We'll see which one wins. She stormed upstairs, and I heard our bedroom door slam. A few minutes later, I heard her on the phone, speaking in urgent, hushed tones, probably calling Barrett to warn him that the cuckolded husband was getting uppity. I went to my office and opened my laptop. Time to learn everything there was to know about Barrett Bear Cole and his business empire. By midnight, I had a complete picture. Barrett's company had been involved in 3 major projects in the past 2 years, all luxury developments. His business partner was a man named Richard Voss, and they specialized in buying older properties, demolishing them, and building high-end condos and office buildings. More interesting was Barrett's personal life. He'd been divorced twice, both times for adultery. He had a reputation in Kansas City's social circles as a charmer who liked other men's wives. There were rumors about his business practices, too. Nothing illegal, but plenty of aggressive tactics and questionable ethics. I found his social media profiles, his business website, and even some local news articles about his developments. Barrett Cole liked attention and publicity. He posted constantly about his success, his cars, his penthouse, and his lifestyle. That gave me an idea. I created a fake email account and sent Barrett's business partner Richard Voss a simple message. Thought you should know that Barrett is having an affair with a married woman named Liora Pierce. She's a real estate agent who might be steering clients to your developments in exchange for personal favors, just looking out for your company's reputation. A concerned citizen. Then I sent a similar email to the managing broker at Liora's real estate firm. You might want to look into whether Liora Pierce is maintaining appropriate professional boundaries with clients. There are rumors about her relationship with developer Barrett Cole that could reflect poorly on your agency. A concerned professional. I hit send on both emails and leaned back in my chair. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting. The next morning, Liora's phone started ringing at 6:30 a.m. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard her answer upstairs. What? No, that's ridiculous. Who told you that? Her voice was getting louder and more panicked. I could hear her pacing around our bedroom. Richard, I barely know Liora. She's just a real estate agent who's shown me a few properties. There's nothing inappropriate going on. Liar. But apparently Barrett was trying to distance himself from the situation. Smart man, terrible boyfriend. Liora came downstairs 20 minutes later, still in her bathrobe, looking like she'd seen a ghost. Someone sent emails about us to Barrett's business partner and my managing broker, she said without preamble. Really? What kind of emails? I asked innocently, sipping my coffee. Accusations about our relationship. Suggestions that I'm mixing business with personal matters. Harlan, if I lose my job, you should have thought about that 8 months ago. She stared at me. Did you send those emails? I have no idea what you're talking about. I've been right here making breakfast. I gestured to the eggs and bacon I'd prepared. Want some? You look like you could use a good meal. This isn't funny, Harlan. You're right. It's not funny at all. It's consequences. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from a number I didn't recognize. This is Kendra Holt, Liora's friend. We need to talk. Meet me at Starbucks on 119th Street at 10 a.m. Come alone. Interesting. Kendra was Liora's best friend and biggest enabler. They'd been thick as thieves for years, shopping together, gossiping together, and apparently keeping secrets together. I have some errands to run this morning, I told Liora. Try not to have any more emergencies while I'm gone. Kendra was already waiting when I arrived at Starbucks. She was 39, blonde like Liora, but natural instead of bottle-born, and she had the kind of nervous energy that came from knowing too many other people's secrets. Harlan, sit down, we need to talk. I figured that's why you texted me. She leaned forward conspiratorially. Look, I know what's been going on with Liora and Barrett. I've known for months. And you didn't think to mention it to me? It wasn't my place. But now things are getting out of hand, and I'm worried about everyone involved. I studied her face. Kendra had always been a gossip, but there was something different in her expression now, something that looked almost like guilt. What aren't you telling me, Kendra? She sighed and looked down at her latte. Barrett and I used to date. 2 years ago, before he met Liora, we were together for about 6 months, and I thought it was serious. Then he dumped me for his second wife, who he then cheated on with 3 different women before their divorce was final. Now we were getting somewhere. So this isn't really about protecting Liora, is it? I tried to warn her about Barrett when they first started seeing each other. I told her he was a player, that he'd break her heart, that he wasn't worth destroying her marriage over, but she wouldn't listen. She said I was just jealous. And were you? Kendra looked up at me with eyes that were surprisingly honest. At first, yes. But then I realized something. Barrett didn't deserve either of us. And you didn't deserve what Liora was doing to you. She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. These are copies of text messages between Liora and Barrett from the past 3 months, screenshots of his social media posts about their secret dates, photos of them together at restaurants and hotels, everything you need to prove the affair in divorce court. I took the envelope, but didn't open it. Why are you helping me? Because Barrett Cole ruins everything he touches, and it's time someone held him accountable. And because despite what Liora thinks, you're a good man who deserves better. What do you want in return? I want you to make sure that when this all comes out, Barrett loses more than just a girlfriend. I want his reputation destroyed. I want his business partners to know what kind of man they're working with. I want every married woman in Kansas City to know to stay away from him. I opened the envelope and glanced through the contents. Text messages talking about hotel rooms and weekend getaways. Photos of Barrett and Liora at expensive restaurants, looking very much like a couple. Social media posts from Barrett about exciting new developments, with photos that clearly showed Liora in the background. This is very thorough, Kendra. I've been collecting evidence for months. I kept thinking Liora would come to her senses, but she just got more reckless. Last week, Barrett posted a photo of his penthouse view with Liora's reflection clearly visible in the window. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Does Liora know you're talking to me? God, no. She thinks I'm on her side. She tells me everything. Where they go, what they do, what Barrett says about you. What does he say about me? Kendra's expression darkened. He calls you the husband problem. He thinks you're weak and stupid. He told Liora that men like you are easy to manipulate because you're too nice to fight back. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Barrett Cole thought I was weak. He thought I was stupid. He thought I was too nice to fight back. He was wrong on all 3 counts, and he was about to find out just how wrong. Kendra, I appreciate this information, but I need you to do something else for me. What? Keep being Liora's friend, keep listening to her secrets, and keep me informed about what Barrett's planning. Can you do that? She nodded eagerly. Absolutely. I want to see him get what he deserves. He will. They both will. I left Starbucks with the envelope and a new ally. Kendra's motives weren't pure. She wanted revenge on Barrett for dumping her, but her information was solid gold. My phone rang as I was driving home. It was Simon. Harlan, I've been doing some research on Barrett Cole. You need to hear this. I'm listening. His company is leveraged to the hilt. They've got 3 major projects going, but they're all financed with loans that have some very strict morality clauses. If Barrett's personal conduct reflects poorly on the company, the banks can call in the loans immediately. What kind of personal conduct? Adultery, public scandals, anything that damages the company's reputation in the community. These banks don't want to be associated with controversial figures. I smiled grimly. That's very interesting, Simon. There's more. Barrett's business partner, Richard Voss, is a deacon at one of the largest churches in Kansas City. He's very concerned about maintaining a Christian image for their company. If he finds out about Barrett's affair, especially with a married woman, he'll probably force Barrett out of the partnership. Even better. What are you planning, Harlan? I'm planning to give Barrett Cole exactly what he's been asking for, a chance to prove how much smarter he is than the weak, stupid husband he's been mocking. When I got home, Liora was on the phone again, this time with her managing broker. I could tell from her tone that the conversation wasn't going well. I understand your concerns, but I can assure you that my relationship with Mr. Cole is strictly professional. Yes, I realize how it might look. No, I don't think a suspension is necessary. She hung up and looked at me with pure hatred. They're suspending me pending an investigation into my professional conduct. Someone has been spreading rumors about Barrett and me. That's terrible, I said, not meaning it at all. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Don't pretend to be sympathetic, Harlan. We both know you're behind this. I'm behind you having an affair with a client? That's an interesting theory. You know what I mean. Stan came downstairs with his backpack. Dad, can you drive me to school today? Mom looks upset, and I don't want to bother her. Of course, buddy. Go wait in the truck. After Stan left, I turned back to Liora. Here's some free advice. When you're in a hole, stop digging. Every lie you tell, every secret meeting you have, every time you choose Barrett over your family, you're making this worse for yourself. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. There's a difference. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Oh, and Liora. You might want to call Barrett and see how his morning is going. I have a feeling he's having some interesting conversations with his business partner today. The look on her face was worth 8 months of betrayal. Almost. Barrett Cole made his first mistake by underestimating me. His second mistake was trying to intimidate me in public. I was having lunch at Johnny's Tavern on Thursday when Barrett walked in with 2 guys who looked like they'd been hired for their muscle mass rather than their conversation skills. Barrett spotted me immediately, probably not a coincidence, and walked over to my table with his entourage in tow. You must be Harlan, he said, extending his hand like we were old friends. Barrett Cole. I think we need to have a conversation. I looked at his hand but didn't shake it. I don't think we do. Barrett's smile faltered slightly, but he pressed on. Look, I understand you're upset about Liora, but there's no need for things to get ugly. We're all adults here. Are we? Because adults don't usually send anonymous emails to destroy people's careers. I have no idea what you're talking about. Barrett sat down across from me without being invited. His 2 friends remained standing, trying to look menacing. It might have worked on someone else. Here's the thing, Harlan. Liora's told me a lot about you. About how you've been neglecting her, taking her for granted, treating her more like a roommate than a wife. She deserves better than that. And you think you're better? I know I am. I can give her things you never could. Excitement, adventure, a lifestyle that matches her ambitions. You're holding her back. I took a sip of my beer and studied Barrett's face. He was handsome in an obvious way, with the kind of confidence that came from always getting what he wanted. But there was something weak around his eyes, something that suggested he'd never been truly challenged. Tell me something, Barrett. Do you know why Liora married me? Because she was young and made a mistake? Because I was the first man who ever told her no? Barrett looked confused. What's that supposed to mean? It means you don't know her as well as you think you do. Liora's attracted to strength, not weakness. She's attracted to men who can match her, challenge her, surprise her, and right now, you're boring her. That's ridiculous. We're in love. Are you? Or are you just convenient for each other? She gets to feel desirable, and you get to feel like you won something. But what happens when the novelty wears off? Barrett's face was getting red. You're just trying to cause problems because you're jealous. I'm trying to save you from making the same mistake I did, thinking that Liora Pierce is capable of loving anyone more than she loves herself. I stood up and pulled out my wallet. But don't take my word for it. Ask her about the other men she's been texting. Ask her about the credit card she's been hiding. Ask her about the real reason she won't leave me for you. Barrett stood up too, his chest puffed out. You're lying. Am I? Then why hasn't she moved in with you yet? Why is she still sleeping in my bed every night? Why won't she introduce you to our son? The questions hit their mark. I could see doubt creeping into Barrett's eyes. Here's some free advice, Barrett. When you play games with married women, sometimes the husband plays back, and sometimes he's better at it than you are. I left money on the table and walked toward the exit. Barrett grabbed my arm as I passed him. This isn't over, he said quietly. You're right, I replied. It's just getting started. That evening I put my plan into motion. I'd spent weeks learning Barrett's routine, his habits, his weaknesses. He posted his location constantly on social media, made reservations at the same restaurants, and drove the same route to work every day. Barrett's weakness was his ego. He needed everyone to know how successful he was, how much money he had, how perfect his life looked. That need for attention was going to be his downfall. I started with his car. Barrett drove a black Tesla Model S that cost more than most people's houses. He parked it in the same spot at his office building every day, right in front where everyone could see it. At 2 a.m., I used my drone to deliver a small package to his car's roof. The package contained 2 pounds of raw shrimp that I'd left in the sun for 3 days. The drone placed the shrimp directly over the car's air intake vent, where they would slowly decompose and fill the interior with an unforgettable smell. But that was just the appetizer. Barrett's penthouse had a smart home system that controlled everything from the lights to the air conditioning. Like most people, he used the same password for multiple accounts. In his case, BearCole1, followed by the current year. I hacked into his system at 3 a.m. and programmed it to play a very special message through every speaker in his apartment at maximum volume every hour on the hour for the next week. This is Harlan Pierce. Barrett, you thought I was too weak and too stupid to fight back. You were wrong on both counts. Enjoy your day. Then I reprogrammed his smart thermostat to randomly switch between 90 degrees and 50 degrees throughout the day. But the masterpiece was what I did to his social media accounts. Barrett had over 3,000 followers on Instagram, where he regularly posted photos of his luxury lifestyle. I gained access to his account and posted a series of photos I'd taken with my drone. Barrett and Liora at various restaurants, hotels, and private locations over the past month. The caption read, "Some of you have been asking about the beautiful woman in my recent posts. Meet Liora Pierce, my girlfriend of 8 months. She's married with a 13-year-old son, but don't worry, her husband doesn't mind sharing. Married woman, no shame, living my best life." I posted similar content to his Facebook and Twitter accounts, making sure to tag Liora's real estate company and Barrett's business partner, Richard Voss. Then I sat back and waited for the fireworks to begin. Barrett's phone started ringing at 6:30 a.m. I know because I was parked across from his building, watching through binoculars as he came running out in his bathrobe, trying to get the smell out of his Tesla. By 8 a.m., Barrett's social media posts had been shared hundreds of times. The comments were brutal. Kansas City's social media community was having a field day with the married woman and her arrogant boyfriend. By 9 a.m., Barrett's business partner, Richard Voss, had called an emergency meeting. I know because Kendra texted me with updates. She was monitoring the situation through her connections in the real estate and development communities. By 10 a.m., 3 different banks had called Barrett's company requesting meetings to discuss their loan agreements. By noon, Barrett's Tesla had been towed because the smell was so bad it violated the building's lease agreement. And by 2 p.m., Liora was standing in my office, crying and screaming and demanding that I fix what I'd done. "You've destroyed everything," she sobbed. "Barrett's business partner is furious. His loans are being reviewed. His social media accounts have been hacked. Someone put rotting fish in his car. Shrimp, actually. And I think you mean someone put consequences in his life." "This is insane, Harlan. You can't just attack people like this." "Attack? I just shared the truth about your relationship with the world. Isn't that what Barrett wanted? For everyone to know how much better he is than me?" Liora wiped her eyes, smearing her makeup. "He's talking about suing you." "For what? Posting photos of him with his girlfriend? Everything I shared was true." "You hacked his accounts. Prove it." She stared at me with a mixture of hatred and fear. "What do you want, Harlan? What will it take for you to stop this?" "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want Barrett to understand that some husbands fight back. And I want our son to see that his father isn't weak." "Stan doesn't need to see this. Stan needs to see that when someone betrays you, lies to you, and treats you with disrespect, you don't just take it. You stand up for yourself." My phone buzzed with a text from Kendra. Barrett just got fired from his own company. Richard Voss bought out his share and banned him from the office. The banks are calling in 2 of their major loans. He's finished. I showed the text to Liora. "Looks like your boyfriend is having a bad day." She read the message and sank into a chair. "You don't understand, Harlan. Barrett owes a lot of money to a lot of people. If his business fails, he could lose everything. His penthouse, his cars, his lifestyle, everything that makes him attractive. And what happens to you when Barrett has nothing left to offer?" The question hung in the air between us. We both knew the answer. Liora looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "Can we fix this? Can we go back to the way things were?" I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and felt nothing but sadness. "Liora, there is no going back. You made your choice 8 months ago. Now you have to live with it. But I choose you now. I choose our family. You don't get to choose me after you've already thrown me away. That's not how it works." She started crying again, but this time I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt sorry for the man I used to be, the man who would have forgiven her, taken her back, and pretended that everything was fine. That man was gone. And in his place was someone much stronger, much smarter, and much more dangerous than Barrett Cole had ever imagined. The war wasn't over yet. But the first battle was definitely mine. Barrett Cole's desperation made him stupid. 3 days after his social media meltdown, he showed up at my office with a lawyer and a plan that was doomed from the start. "Mr. Pierce," the lawyer said, "my client is prepared to file charges for harassment, cyberstalking, and destruction of property unless you agree to cease all contact with him and his business interests." I looked at Barrett, who was trying to project confidence, but mostly looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. His expensive suit couldn't hide the fact that he was falling apart. "What property did I destroy?" I asked. "You hacked my social media accounts and posted defamatory content. I posted photos of you with your girlfriend at public restaurants. How is that defamatory?" "You invaded my privacy and caused damage to my business relationships." "Your business relationships were damaged by your conduct, not by my documentation of it." The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Pierce, my client is willing to overlook your recent actions if you agree to stop this campaign of harassment." "What campaign? I haven't contacted Barrett at all. I haven't called him, emailed him, or approached him in any way. In fact, he's the one who came to my restaurant to threaten me, and now he's the one in my office making demands." Barrett finally spoke up. "You know what you did. The car, the smart home system, the social media posts, all of it. Prove it." I don't have to prove it. I know it was you. Knowing and proving are two different things, Barrett. You should ask your lawyer about that. The lawyer looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Mr. Pierce, while we can't prove specific actions, the pattern of harassment is clear. What pattern? A man discovered his wife was having an affair and gathered evidence for divorce proceedings. Then someone, and we don't know who, shared that evidence publicly. That's not harassment. That's transparency. I leaned forward in my chair. But let me ask you something, Barrett. Why are you so concerned about what I might do next? If you're innocent of wrongdoing, if your relationship with my wife is as pure and wonderful as you claim, why are you worried about publicity? Barrett's face went red. Because you're trying to destroy my life. I'm not trying to destroy anything. I'm just making sure the truth comes out. If the truth destroys your life, that's not my fault. The meeting ended with Barrett storming out and his lawyer apologizing for wasting my time. But I knew Barrett wasn't done. Desperate men do desperate things, and Barrett Cole was about to get very desperate indeed. That evening, Simon called with news. Harlan, you need to be careful. I've been hearing things through my contacts in the security business. Barrett's been asking around about hiring people to intimidate you. What kind of people? The kind who solve problems with their fists instead of their brains. He's also been spreading rumors that you're unstable, that you've been threatening him and his business associates. Let him spread rumors. The truth has a way of coming out. There's something else. Barrett's been meeting with a man named Tony Castellano. Tony runs a construction company that has ties to some very unpleasant people. If Barrett owes money to the wrong crowd, this could get dangerous. I felt a chill run down my spine. How dangerous? The kind of dangerous where people end up in the hospital, or worse. That night, I sat in my office reviewing security footage from my property cameras. If Barrett was planning something, I wanted to be ready. At 2 a.m., I got my answer. 3 men in dark clothing approached my house from the backyard. They moved carefully, professionally, like they'd done this before. One carried what looked like a crowbar, another had a baseball bat, and the third had something I couldn't identify in the darkness. I called 911 and then called Simon. They're here, I whispered into the phone. 3 men, armed, approaching from the back. Police? Already called. ETA 5 minutes. Can you get to your safe room? I'd installed a reinforced office in my basement after a burglary in our neighborhood 2 years ago. It had steel doors, independent communications, and enough supplies to last for hours. Yeah, but I want to see what they're planning first. I watched through my security cameras as the 3 men approached my back door. The one with the crowbar started working on the lock, while the other 2 stood watch. Then I did something that surprised even me. I activated my home's external speaker system and started talking to them. Good evening, gentlemen. This is Harlan Pierce. You're currently being recorded by 6 different cameras in high definition. The police are already on their way, ETA 3 minutes. I'd suggest you leave now before this becomes a very expensive mistake. The 3 men froze, looking around for the cameras. Oh, and you might want to tell Barrett Cole that sending thugs to intimidate someone is a felony. Conspiracy to commit burglary, criminal trespass, intimidation, that's about 10 years in prison if you're convicted. The man with the crowbar said something to his companions that I couldn't hear, but their body language suggested they were reconsidering their career choices. 2 minutes until police arrival. You can leave now and pretend this never happened, or you can stay and explain to the officers why you're on my property with burglary tools at 2 a.m. Your choice. They chose to leave, running back through my yard and disappearing into the night. But not before my cameras captured clear images of all 3 faces. The police arrived 4 minutes later. Detective Ray Fuller, Simon's old partner, took my statement and reviewed the security footage. You know these guys were probably just here to scare you, right? Ray said. Break some windows, trash your office, send a message. I figured as much. But I also figured they weren't expecting to be recorded and identified. Ray smiled grimly. Barrett Cole's having a very bad week, isn't he? It's about to get worse. The next morning, I called Barrett's lawyer. Your client made a serious mistake last night, I told him. He sent 3 men to break into my home. I have video evidence, police reports, and witnesses. If Barrett contacts me again, directly or indirectly, I'm filing charges for conspiracy, intimidation, and attempted burglary. Mr. Pierce, I can assure you that my client had nothing to do with— Save it for the judge. Just make sure Barrett understands that if anything happens to me, my family, or my property, he'll be the first person the police investigate, and they'll have plenty of evidence to work with. I hung up and immediately called the 3 banks that held Barrett's construction loans. I sent each of them copies of the police report from the previous night, along with a formal complaint about Barrett's attempts to intimidate and harass me. I thought you should know, I told each loan officer, that Barrett Cole is currently under investigation for conspiracy to commit burglary and intimidation. This might affect your assessment of his character and the risk he represents to your institution. By noon, 2 of the 3 banks had called Barrett's remaining loans. His construction projects were shut down immediately, and his assets were frozen pending a full audit. Barrett's world was collapsing, but he still had one card left to play: my wife. Liora came home that evening, looking like she'd been through a war. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup was smeared, and her hands were shaking. Barrett's lost everything, she said without preamble. His business, his penthouse, his cars, everything's being repossessed or sold to pay his debts. That's unfortunate. He's blaming you for everything. He says you've destroyed his life. Barrett destroyed his own life. I just documented it. Liora sat down across from me, her green eyes filled with desperation. Harlan, he's talking about leaving Kansas City, starting over somewhere else. He wants me to come with him. And I don't know what to do. If I stay here, my career is ruined. Everyone knows about the affair. I can't show my face at the country club or the real estate office. But if I go with Barrett, I lose Stan, I lose my home, I lose everything I've built here. I looked at my wife and felt something I hadn't felt in months: pity. Liora, you made your choices. Barrett made his choices. Now you both have to live with the consequences. But it doesn't have to end this way. We could start over, you and me. We could get counseling, work on our marriage, rebuild what we had. What we had was based on trust, respect, and love. You threw all of that away for 8 months of excitement with a man who's now broke and desperate. There's no rebuilding from that. She started crying again. So that's it? 15 years of marriage and you're just giving up? I'm not giving up, Liora. I'm accepting reality. You chose Barrett over me. You chose lies over truth. You chose betrayal over loyalty. Those were your decisions, not mine. But I was wrong. I see that now. Yes, you were wrong. But being wrong doesn't erase the damage you've done. It doesn't bring back the trust you destroyed. And it doesn't change the fact that you only want me back now because Barrett can't take care of you anymore. I stood up and looked down at her. Here's what's going to happen, Liora. You're going to file for divorce, or I am. You're going to agree to joint custody of Stan, and you're going to accept a fair division of assets based on your contribution to our marriage, which, frankly, wasn't much in the last few years. And if I don't agree? Then we'll let a judge decide, and I have 8 months of documentation showing how you spent our money on your affair, how you neglected our son for your boyfriend, and how you destroyed our marriage for a man who's now facing criminal charges. Liora looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. You've changed, Harlan. You're not the man I married. You're right. The man you married was naive enough to trust you. The man you married was weak enough to let you walk all over him. The man you married would have forgiven you and taken you back. I walked toward the door, then turned back to face her. But that man is gone, Liora. You eliminated him. What you're looking at now is what's left. And what's left doesn't forgive, doesn't forget, and doesn't give second chances to people who don't deserve them. I left her sitting in our living room, crying into her hands. Upstairs, I could hear Stan playing video games, oblivious to the adult drama unfolding below. Tomorrow, I would sit down with my son and explain that his parents were getting divorced. It would be one of the hardest conversations of my life. But tonight, I felt something I hadn't felt in 8 months. Peace. The war was almost over. And I had won. The end came on a Thursday night in October, during the worst thunderstorm Kansas City had seen in years. Lightning was splitting the sky, rain was hammering against the windows, and the power had been flickering on and off for hours. I was in my office, reviewing divorce papers that my attorney had prepared, when my security system alerted me to movement in the backyard. At first, I thought it might be another tree branch blown down by the wind, but then I saw them on the cameras, 2 figures moving toward my house, hunched against the storm. It was Liora and Barrett. They were both soaked to the skin and moving with the desperate urgency of people who had nothing left to lose. Barrett was carrying what looked like a crowbar, and Liora had a key to the back door, a key I'd forgotten to have her return when I changed the other locks. I watched them let themselves into my kitchen and heard Liora whisper, "The safe is in his office. He keeps cash, important documents, everything valuable in there." So that's what this was about. Barrett needed money to run, and Liora was helping him steal it from her own family. I could have called the police, should have called the police, but I wanted to see how far they were willing to go, and I wanted them to know that I was watching when they crossed the final line. I activated my home's internal speaker system and turned on every light in the house simultaneously. "Good evening, Liora. Good evening, Barrett. Welcome to my home, again." They froze in the kitchen, looking around wildly for the source of my voice. "You're both being recorded in high definition from 6 different angles. The footage is being automatically uploaded to a secure server, so destroying my equipment won't help you." Barrett raised the crowbar like he was going to smash something, but Liora grabbed his arm. "Harlan, please," she called out. "We just need some money to get out of town. Barrett owes people, dangerous people. If we don't pay them back, they'll hurt us." That sounds like a Barrett problem, not a Harlan problem. "I'm still your wife. You can't just let them eliminate me." "You stopped being my wife 8 months ago, Liora. You made that very clear." I watched them through the cameras as they whispered urgently to each other. Barrett was getting agitated, pacing back and forth, waving the crowbar. Liora was trying to calm him down, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "Here's what's going to happen," I announced. "You're going to leave my house immediately and never come back. Or you're going to stay and explain to the police why you're committing burglary." Barrett looked directly at one of the cameras. "I'm not leaving without that money, Harlan. You destroyed my life, you destroyed my business, you took everything from me. I'm taking something back. You took my wife and destroyed my marriage. I just returned the favor." "She was never really yours anyway," Barrett shouted. "She told me how you bored her, how you couldn't satisfy her, how she wished she'd never married you. And yet here she is, trying to steal from me to save your worthless life. Funny how that works." They started moving toward my office. I let them get halfway down the hallway before I activated the next phase of my plan. Every door in the house slammed shut simultaneously, activated by the smart lock system I'd installed after Barrett's first attempt at intimidation. The front door, the back door, all the bedroom doors, even the bathroom doors, everything locked automatically. "What the hell?" Barrett shouted, trying to force open the door to my office. "Motion sensors," I explained over the speakers. "The house is now in lockdown mode. No one gets in or out until I disable the system." "You can't keep us here," Liora screamed. "That's kidnapping." "Actually, it's called a citizen's arrest. You're both committing burglary, and I'm detaining you until the police arrive." Barrett started attacking the office door with his crowbar, but it was reinforced steel set in a steel frame. He could swing at it all night without making a dent. "The police are on their way," I announced. "ETA 7 minutes. You might want to use that time to think about what you're going to tell them." That's when Barrett made his final mistake. In his rage and desperation, he turned the crowbar on my security cameras, smashing 3 of them before Liora could stop him. Destruction of property, I noted calmly. That's a felony. Add it to the burglary charges and the violation of your restraining order, and you're looking at 5 to 10 years, Barrett. What restraining order? Liora asked. The one I filed yesterday after Barrett's friends tried to break into my house last week. Barrett's not supposed to be within 500 feet of me or my property. I could see the realization dawning on Liora's face. She'd been set up. Barrett hadn't told her about the restraining order because he needed her help to get into my house, and he was willing to let her go down with him. "You snake," she said to Barrett. "You didn't tell me about any restraining order." "It doesn't matter now," Barrett replied, still attacking the door. "We're already here. We might as well get what we came for." "Barrett, stop! You're making this worse." But Barrett was beyond reason. 8 months of ego, greed, and arrogance had led him to this moment, and he couldn't accept that he'd lost. That's when I decided to give them both a final gift, the truth. "Liora," I said over the speakers, "ask Barrett about Melissa Rodriguez." "Who's Melissa Rodriguez?" Liora asked. Barrett stopped swinging the crowbar. "She's Barrett's other girlfriend," I continued. "The one he's been seeing for the past 2 months while he's been telling you that you're the love of his life." "That's a lie," Barrett shouted. "Is it? Check his phone, Liora. Check his text messages from last Tuesday night when he told you he was meeting with lawyers about his business problems." Liora grabbed Barrett's phone from his pocket. He tried to stop her, but she was quicker. "Can't wait to see you tonight, beautiful," she read aloud. "Liora's getting too clingy, but you know you're the only one I really want." Barrett's face went white. "Liora, I can explain." "She's just a meal ticket until my business problems get sorted out," Liora continued reading. "Once I get some money out of her husband, we can disappear together." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of thunder outside. "You bastard," Liora whispered. "You lying, cheating bastard." "Look who's talking about lying and cheating," Barrett shot back. "You destroyed your own marriage for me. Because I thought you loved me. I never said I loved you. I said I wanted you. There's a difference." I watched through my remaining cameras as 15 years of marriage and 8 months of adultery collapsed into their component parts: selfishness, greed, lust, and betrayal. "This is very touching," I announced. "But the police will be here in 2 minutes. You might want to decide how you're going to explain this situation." That's when Liora surprised me. Instead of continuing to argue with Barrett, she walked over to one of my cameras and looked directly into it. "Harlan, I know you'll never forgive me. I know I've destroyed everything good in our lives. But please don't let Stan see this footage. Don't let him see what his mother became." For the first time in months, I heard genuine remorse in her voice. "I won't show it to him," I promised. "But Liora, you need to understand. This is who you chose to be. This is who you chose over your family." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. And I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life." The police arrived exactly 7 minutes after I'd called them, just as I'd predicted. Detective Ray Fuller was among them, and he took one look at the scene and shook his head. "Harlan, you want to tell me what happened here?" I unlocked the doors and let the officers into my house. Barrett and Liora were sitting on opposite sides of my hallway, no longer looking like partners in crime. "They broke into my house with the intent to burglarize my safe," I explained. "I have video evidence of their entry, their statements about stealing money, and Barrett's destruction of my security equipment." Ray looked at Barrett, who was still holding the crowbar. "That true?" Barrett said nothing. Ray looked at Liora. "Ma'am?" "Yes," she said quietly. "It's true." They were both arrested, read their rights, and taken away in separate police cars. Barrett was charged with burglary, destruction of property, and violation of a restraining order. Liora was charged with burglary and conspiracy. But the real punishment wasn't the legal charges. The real punishment was that they'd finally seen each other clearly, without the romantic fantasy that had sustained their affair. They'd seen the selfishness, the greed, and the willingness to betray anyone for personal gain. They'd seen who they really were. Stan came downstairs as the police cars were pulling away. He'd slept through the storm and most of the drama, but he was awake now. "Dad, was that Mom in the police car?" "Yes, buddy, it was." "Is she going to jail?" "Probably for a little while." Stan nodded solemnly. "Good. She made you sad for a long time." I put my arm around my son's shoulders. "She made herself sad too, Stan. She just didn't realize it until tonight." The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Liora pled guilty to burglary and received 2 years probation in exchange for her testimony against Barrett, who was sentenced to 3 years in prison. She moved to Florida to live with her sister and start over. She calls Stan every Sunday, and he talks to her politely but without enthusiasm. The damage to their relationship will take years to repair, if it ever can be. Barrett's construction company was liquidated to pay his debts. His penthouse was sold, his cars were repossessed, and his reputation in Kansas City was destroyed. When he gets out of prison, he'll have nothing left of the life he tried so hard to steal from me. As for me, I kept the house, got primary custody of Stan, and rebuilt my business stronger than ever. The security consulting work I started doing after Barrett's harassment attempts has become a major part of my income. But the best revenge wasn't financial or legal. The best revenge was watching Barrett and Liora destroy each other with the same selfishness and betrayal they'd used on me. They thought they were so much smarter than the boring, weak husband. They thought they deserved better than the life they had. They thought they could take whatever they wanted without consequences. They were wrong about everything. 6 months after the divorce was final, I was having coffee at the same Starbucks where Kendra had first offered to help me. She walked in, saw me, and came over to my table. "How are you doing, Harlan?" "Better than I expected. How about you?" "Good. I heard Barrett got out of prison early for good behavior." 3 months early. He's working at a car wash in Tulsa now." Kendra smiled. "And Liora?" "Selling insurance in Tampa, making about a quarter of what she used to make in real estate." "Do you ever regret how it all turned out?" I thought about that for a moment. I regret that it happened at all. I regret that Stan had to see his mother destroy our family. I regret 15 years of marriage ending in betrayal and bitterness. But I don't regret fighting back. I don't regret refusing to be the victim they expected me to be. And I don't regret showing them that actions have consequences. Kendra nodded. "Barrett always said you were too nice to cause any real trouble." "Barrett said a lot of things. Most of them were wrong." I finished my coffee and stood up to leave. "Take care of yourself, Kendra." "You too, Harlan. And Harlan? For what it's worth, I think you handled everything exactly right." I walked out into the Kansas City sunshine, got into my truck, and drove home to pick up Stan from school. We had plans to go to a Royals game that evening, just the two of us, the way it had been for the past year, the way it would be from now on. Barrett Cole had thought he was taking my wife away from me. What he'd actually done was give me back my life, my self-respect, and my relationship with my son. He'd given me the chance to prove that the nice guy doesn't always finish last. Sometimes he finishes first, and everyone else finishes in prison.